Chapter 1. A chance encounter. Grace Harper walked into the quiet library, the familiar scent of old books and polished wood wrapping around her like a comforting hug. She had always found solace among the shelves, where stories could carry her away from the worries she carried in her heart. Today, she moved slowly through the rows, her fingers brushing the spines of novels, as if greeting old friends. She paused in the fiction section, reaching for a book she had read many times before. A voice spoke from the aisle beside her, gentle and curious. "That is one of my favorites," the man said. Grace turned to find Noah Bennett standing there, holding a different book with a warm smile on his face. His eyes had a kindness that made it hard not to feel at ease in his presence. She returned his smile softly, a little surprised by the sudden warmth she felt. They talked quietly about the book, sharing thoughts on the characters and the story. Grace was struck by how easy it felt to speak with him. There was no judgment, no rush, only a calm exchange of ideas and gentle laughter. Time seemed to slow around them, and for the first time that week, Grace felt a small flicker of hope inside her chest. Noah listened intently when she spoke, nodding and asking questions that made her feel heard in a way she rarely experienced. She noticed the way he leaned slightly forward, the way his smile reached his eyes. There was a sincerity in him that felt rare and comforting. When she laughed at a funny moment in the story, he laughed too, and the sound was warm and inviting. As they exchanged a few more thoughts about books, Grace realized she had been standing there longer than she intended, completely absorbed in the conversation. She felt a little nervous at the thought of leaving, not because she wanted to stay in the library indefinitely, but because she had never met someone who could make her heart feel so light with such simple words. Noah noticed her hesitation and smiled softly. "Would you like to meet here again sometime?" he asked. Grace felt a warmth spreading in her chest, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. She nodded, her voice quiet but certain. "I would like that." As she walked away from the library later that day, Grace carried a new sense of possibility with her. She had come in feeling weighed down by her past and left with a small spark of hope. The world seemed a little brighter, and the thought of seeing Noah again made her heart lift in a way it had not for a long time. Something gentle and promising had begun, and Grace knew that she was ready to see where it might lead. Chapter 2. Small Comforts. Grace had never thought the small town of Willowbrook could feel so full of quiet surprises until she began noticing Noah more often around the streets and shops she frequented. One morning, she bumped into him at the corner cafe, where the smell of fresh pastries and coffee mingled in the air. He was standing in line with a book in his hand, and when he saw her, his smile was easy and genuine. They exchanged greetings and decided to sit together, talking about the new book he had found and sharing laughs over little things that reminded them of past moments. It was in these small interactions that Grace began to feel the weight of her loneliness lift just a little, replaced by the simple comfort of someone who cared to listen. Later that week, Grace ran into Noah at the park, and this time he carried a small thermos of coffee. They sat on a worn wooden bench, sipping the warm drink as the sunlight filtered through the branches, casting playful patterns on the path. Noah listened patiently as Grace spoke about her work and the subtle struggles she faced each day. He never offered advice unless she asked, simply letting her words settle in the open air as if each sentence mattered. In return, he shared little glimpses of his own life, moments that were tender and unguarded, letting her see the kind of man he was without needing to prove anything. Each encounter, each shared smile, began to build a bridge of trust between them. Grace noticed the small gestures, like the way he remembered her favorite pastry, the way he would pause to let her talk before speaking himself. She began leaving her apartment with a sense of quiet anticipation, wondering where she might find him next, eager to share another ordinary moment that somehow felt extraordinary when spent together. Slowly, the connection between them deepened, not in grand declarations, but in the comfort of knowing someone cared, and that care was mutual. One rainy afternoon, Noah appeared at the cafe again, holding an umbrella and offering it with a shy grin. Grace laughed softly as she accepted it, grateful for the simple thoughtfulness. They walked under its shelter, sharing stories and discovering that even the mundane moments of life could feel meaningful when experienced together. Grace realized that these encounters, small as they were, began to stitch together the threads of hope she had thought were lost. Noah had a way of turning ordinary days into gentle reminders that kindness and understanding could exist, and that the heart could still find room for connection. By the time she returned home that evening, Grace felt a warmth she had not expected. It was quiet and steady, not overwhelming, but persistent enough to make her think that perhaps life could offer more than disappointment. Perhaps it could offer a chance at something beautiful, something worth holding on to. And in the back of her mind, she already knew she would look forward to the next small moments they might share together. Chapter 3. Opening Up Park had a calmness that Grace always appreciated. A space where the rustling leaves and distant bird songs made it easier to breathe freely. She met Noah there in the late afternoon, the sunlight soft and warm across the paths they walked. They chose a quiet spot on a bench of the small pond, where the water reflected the colors of the sky and created a peaceful atmosphere. For a while, they walked in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that felt safe rather than awkward. Grace felt herself relaxing in a way she rarely allowed, and she realized she was beginning to trust him with the thoughts she often kept tucked away. Eventually, Grace found the courage to share a piece of her past, the story of a friendship she had lost long ago, and how it had made her wary of trusting others. She spoke slowly, choosing her words with care, noticing how Noah's eyes remained soft and attentive, never interrupting or judging. When she paused, unsure if she had said too much, he gently reached out, resting a hand on hers in a gesture that was supportive but not intrusive. His presence was grounding, a reminder that someone could listen without needing to fix everything. As he began to share his own experiences, Grace noticed how similar his struggles were, yet how he had chosen to face them with quiet resilience. It created a connection that felt profound, a shared understanding that life could be challenging, but not unbearable when someone was willing to walk alongside you. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the grass, they continued talking, their words weaving together stories of hopes, fears, and small dreams. Grace realized that she was laughing more freely than she had in months, that she could speak her heart without fear of judgment. Noah listened with patience, asking questions that encouraged her to reflect and feel heard, rather than pushing her to reveal more than she was ready to. By the time they left the park, the air cooler and the evening calm, Grace felt a sense of lightness that had been missing for a long time. There was a quiet trust growing between them, a sense that perhaps opening up was not as frightening as she had imagined. As they said their goodbyes with a promise to meet again soon, Grace felt a small, steady hope take root in her chest, a hope that life could offer gentle companionship, understanding, and the possibility of something tender beginning to bloom. Chapter 4. Moments of laughter. Grace found herself looking forward to the afternoons she would spend with Noah, the anticipation making her steps lighter as she walked through Willowbrook's quiet streets. They had begun discovering shared interests, from the small joys of local cafes to the charm of the town's little bookshops. One Saturday, they wandered into a vintage store filled with old photographs, trinkets, and nostalgic treasures. Grace held up a delicate music box, winding it slowly to hear the soft melody, and Noah laughed at her surprised delight. His laughter was easy and warm, and it made her laugh in return. In that moment, Grace realized that joy could come from the simplest things, and that laughing together felt like a balm to the heart. After the store, they stopped at a small park where children were playing and dogs ran happily across the grass. They sat on a bench, sharing stories from their childhoods and recalling moments that had made them both smile and shake their heads. Noah told a story about an embarrassing fall he had taken in middle school, and Grace laughed so hard her sides ached. He joined in the laughter, his eyes sparkling with amusement and a kind of genuine ease that Grace had not often encountered. They teased each other gently about small things, learning the rhythms of each other's humor, and the playfulness brought a lightness to their friendship that neither had anticipated. As the day turned to evening, they continued their walk, sharing quiet observations about the town and the beauty in ordinary life. Grace noticed how easy it was to be herself around him, how natural it felt to share a silly joke or a fleeting thought without fear of being judged. Noah seemed to have a way of turning ordinary moments into something memorable, making the mundane feel meaningful. They paused to watch the sunset from a small hill, the sky painted in soft oranges and purples, and Grace felt a warmth in her chest that was more than the setting sun. It was the warmth of connection, of being seen and understood. She realized that these moments of laughter and lightness were slowly healing parts of her heart she had thought were lost. Walking home later, Grace felt a quiet joy lingering within her. The laughter they shared had created a bridge between them, a gentle thread weaving their lives together in small, meaningful ways. She thought about the simple pleasure of being with someone who could make her smile so easily, someone who could share in the small absurdities of life and turn them into moments of happiness. For the first time in a long while, Grace allowed herself to hope that these light-hearted moments could be the foundation of something lasting, a connection built not on grand gestures, but on the steady, comforting rhythm of shared joy. Chapter 5. Unexpected supper. Grace had been feeling the pressure all week, a mixture of work deadlines and family concerns that seemed to pile up faster than she could manage. She tried to push through on her own, as she usually did, but by Thursday afternoon, the weight of it all felt heavier than usual. She had planned to run a few errands and hoped the distraction of being out in the fresh air would help clear her mind. As she walked through the small streets of Willowbrook, her thoughts scattered between lists of things to do and worries about whether she was handling everything as well as she should. It was then that she noticed Noah sitting on a bench near the town square, reading a book. When he saw her, his face lit up with that gentle smile she had come to trust and expect. Grace tried to return the smile, but it faltered under the weight of her stress. Noah immediately noticed the tension in her shoulders and the quiet strain in her voice when she greeted him. Without pressing her for explanations, he offered to accompany her as she ran her errands. The gesture was simple, but it carried with it a warmth that made Grace feel seen and supported in a way she had almost forgotten existed. Throughout the afternoon, Noah stayed close, helping carry packages when her arms were full, holding doors open with easy kindness, and asking questions that made her feel heard. At the grocery store, he patiently waited while she checked off her long list, offering little jokes about forgotten items or misread labels that made her laugh despite herself. Each small act reminded her that she did not have to face life's burdens alone, that support could come in quiet, unobtrusive ways that lifted the heart rather than demanding attention. She found herself letting go of the rigid control she always insisted upon, allowing Noah to step in without feeling guilty or weak. Later, as they walked through the park with her errands done, Grace realized that this simple presence, this willingness to help without asking for anything in return, was something she had been longing for. Noah had shown her that trust and support could coexist with friendship, that leaning on someone else did not make her any less capable. By the time they parted that evening, Grace felt a lightness that had not been there in days. The challenge she had faced no longer seemed insurmountable, and she understood that part of holding hope was knowing that someone could walk beside you when the load felt too heavy. As she closed the door to her apartment and set down her packages, Grace smiled softly, grateful for Noah's unexpected support and the quiet reassurance that she was not alone. Chapter 6. Growing closer. Days that followed brought a gentle rhythm to Grace and Noah's lives, a pattern of small meetings and shared moments that neither had anticipated, but both welcomed. They began to learn the details of each other's daily lives, the little habits and preferences that made the other unique. Grace noticed how Noah would always tuck a stray strand of hair behind his ear when he was thinking, and he noticed how her eyes lit up when she spoke about something she loved. These small observations, unnoticed by others, became tokens of understanding between them, quiet markers of the closeness that was beginning to grow. One afternoon, they decided to spend time at the edge of Willowbrook's river. Sitting on a blanket spread across the soft grass, Grace shared her dream of one day traveling to places she had only read about, and Noah spoke of his wish to write a story that could touch people's hearts. Their conversation moved naturally, weaving together hopes and fears with laughter and gentle teasing. They discovered that the act of simply being present for each other could carry a depth of meaning that neither words nor grand gestures could fully capture. In the simplicity of shared time, Grace felt herself letting down barriers she had long held in place, realizing that closeness could come in quiet, patient ways. As the evening approached, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold, they helped each other with small tasks. Grace pointed out interesting shapes in the clouds, and Noah sketched a few on a piece of scrap paper he carried with him, passing it to her with a playful grin. They sat side by side, the gentle lapping of the river blending with the soft hum of conversation, each word building trust and intimacy. Grace realized that these ordinary moments were extraordinary because of the care and attention woven into them. She felt a warmth in her chest that was steady and reassuring, the kind that whispered of connection and mutual respect. By the time the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Grace and Noah sat quietly, content in the simplicity of being together. The closeness between them had grown into something more profound than mere friendship, a gentle intertwining of lives and hearts that neither could ignore. Grace understood that the bond they shared was built on trust, shared understanding, and the small joys of everyday life. She felt ready to embrace this connection fully, confident that the comfort and warmth she experienced with Noah were the beginnings of something lasting and beautiful. Chapter 7. A Test of Hope. Grace and Noah had grown accustomed to the easy comfort of their time together, the quiet rhythm of shared afternoons and simple conversations that had become the foundation of their bond. Yet life, as it often does, introduced a complication that neither had expected. One evening, a misunderstanding arose over a comment made in passing, something small, loaded with unspoken assumptions. Grace misinterpreted Noah's words as indifference, and for the first time in their friendship, doubt crept into her mind. She felt the familiar tug of fear she had carried for years, the fear that connections could be fragile and easily broken. Noah, on his part, noticed the subtle shift in her demeanor, the way she avoided his gaze and spoke in clipped sentences. He felt a pang of frustration mixed with concern, wishing he could bridge the sudden distance between them without overstepping. Both of them wrestled internally with pride, uncertainty, and the quiet desire to preserve the bond they had worked so hard to nurture. The days that followed were marked by cautious interactions, lingering silences, and unspoken questions. Grace found herself replaying their last conversation, analyzing every nuance, while Noah considered how to express himself clearly without forcing her trust. Eventually, they met again at the park, the place where so many of their most tender moments had begun. Noah took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice calm and measured. He explained his words and intentions, emphasizing how much he valued their connection and how much he cared for her feelings. Grace listened, feeling the tension in her chest ease gradually as she realized the misunderstanding had not been a reflection of his heart, but rather a momentary miscommunication. She, in turn, shared her fears and the way past disappointments had made her quick to doubt. As she spoke, Noah reached out, gently taking her hand, letting her feel the sincerity in his gesture. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the park, Grace and Noah had found their way back to one another. The incident had tested them, revealing the fragility that comes with caring deeply, but it had also shown them the strength of honest conversation and patience. They realized that hope in a relationship was not about ignoring challenges, but about facing them together, openly and with trust. Walking home side by side, their hands brushing and finally intertwining naturally, Grace felt a renewed sense of faith in the bond they shared. She understood that love and hope required courage, the willingness to be vulnerable, and the commitment to meet each other with understanding even when fear threatened to take hold. Chapter 8. Acts of kindnesses. The days grew warmer. Grace and Noah found themselves drawn, only to each other, but also to the little ways they could bring comfort and joy to those around them. One Saturday morning, they volunteered at the community garden, planting flowers and vegetables alongside neighbors who were equally eager to nurture something together. Grace dug into the soil with careful attention, laughing as Noah playfully got dirt on his hands and face, pretending to be a terrible gardener. The shared laughter reminded them that kindness could be both practical and light-hearted, and that joy often came in simple forms afterward. They walked through the town square carrying small bouquets of flowers from the garden, handing them to shopkeepers and passers-by. The smiles they received in return were contagious, and Grace felt a deep warmth in her chest as she witnessed the ripple effect of thoughtful gestures. Noah gently squeezed her hand as they moved from person to person, their small acts of care connecting them to the community and to each other in ways that words alone could not convey. Grace realized that these experiences deepened not only their bond, but also her sense of belonging and purpose. Later in the week, Noah surprised Grace with a visit to her apartment, bringing ingredients to bake bread together, as they needed the dough and shared small, playful disagreements about who was doing it better. Grace noticed how effortless it felt to be herself around him. They laughed, teased, and offered encouragement. Their connection strengthened through the shared rhythm of cooperation and attention to detail. By the time the bread was golden and warm from the oven, Grace felt a profound sense of comfort, realizing that these small acts of kindness both to each other and to others had become a language they shared, one that spoke louder than words. Even in quieter moments, their gestures continued. Noah would leave a little note on her doorstep or send a thoughtful message during the day, and Grace found herself doing the same. Each act a gentle reminder that someone cared and that love could be shown in many forms. By helping others and showing care in small, consistent ways, they were learning that hope and connection were strengthened not only by words but by actions. Grace understood that through these shared acts of kindness, she and Noah were building a foundation of trust, respect, and warmth that would carry them through whatever challenges might come, proving that love often grows strongest in the quiet, deliberate moments of giving and caring together. Chapter 9. Realizing love bond between Grace and Noah had grown steadily over weeks of shared moments, laughter, and quiet understanding. One afternoon, as they strolled along the tree-lined paths of Willowbrook, Grace felt a clarity she had not expected. Every smile, every thoughtful gesture, every small conversation had built something stronger than friendship. She found herself noticing the way Noah's eyes lit up when he listened to her, the gentle tilt of his head when he asked a question, and the way his presence made even ordinary days feel meaningful. The realization settled softly in her heart that what she felt for him was more than affection or comfort, it was love. Noah, too, had been quietly aware of the shift in his own feelings. He treasured the easy companionship they shared and the warmth that seemed to radiate from Grace even in moments of silence. He found himself looking for ways to see her smile, to ease her worries, and to be present in her life in small but meaningful ways. On this particular afternoon, as the sun filtered through the autumn leaves, he felt the certainty that Grace had become essential to him, that the thought of her absence would leave a hollow ache he could not ignore. They paused by a small fountain in the park, the water sparkling in the sunlight, and sat on the edge to rest. Grace spoke about her hopes for the future and her dreams, realizing that Noah was the first person she could imagine sharing them with fully. He listened attentively, offering encouragement and gentle insight without ever overshadowing her voice. In return, he shared his own aspiration, the quiet dreams he had held close, and she felt a thrill at the thought of being part of his world in a way that mattered. They laughed, teased, and reflected together, discovering that love was not about grand gestures but about these small, shared experiences that nurtured trust and intimacy. As they walked home later, their hands brushed and then held naturally, each finding comfort in the other's presence. Grace felt her heart lift, not with the urgency of a sudden infatuation, but with the steady, enduring warmth of a love that had grown from patience, understanding, and shared kindness. She realized that this love was different. It was a safe place, a source of hope, and a reminder that life could be beautiful when two people were willing to nurture it together. By the time they parted that evening, both Grace and Noah carried with them the quiet, unwavering certainty that their connection had blossomed into something lasting. A love that would continue to grow with each small act of care and each shared moment of joy. Chapter 10. Holding hope together. Grace and Noah had come to understand that life was rarely simple, yet in their shared experiences, they had discovered a steadfastness that felt rare and precious. That morning, they walked through the streets of Willowbrook together, the crisp air filled with the scent of autumn leaves and the quiet hum of everyday life. As they talked about small plans for the week, Grace realized that what had once felt uncertain and heavy in her heart now carried a sense of calm and optimism. She no longer feared the weight of the world pressing down, because she knew Noah would walk beside her, not to solve every problem, but to share in the journey with patience and love. They spent the afternoon helping at a local charity event, working side by side to bring warmth and comfort to those in need. Grace watched Noah interact with people around them, the same gentle kindness he had shown her, now extended freely to others. In his presence, she felt inspired to be the best version of herself, to embrace hope in the little acts of caring that could ripple outward and touch lives beyond their own. Between organizing supplies, sharing smiles, and offering encouragement, they found themselves laughing and joking as they worked. These between them a testament to the strength of the bond they had nurtured over months of shared moments. Later, as the sun began to set and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Grace and Noah walked along the familiar path beside the river. The quiet water mirrored their reflections, a gentle reminder of how far they had come together. They spoke softly of their dreams, hopes, and the small, meaningful things that made life feel worthwhile. Grace realized that love was not about perfection or grand gestures, but about the unwavering choice to be present for one another, to hold on to hope even when life seemed uncertain. She looked at Noah and felt the depth of connection that had grown from patience, understanding, laughter, and shared kindness. As they paused on a small bridge, their hands entwined naturally. Grace felt a serene certainty settle in her heart. Noah smiled at her, his eyes reflecting the same quiet hope she felt within. In that moment, all the small steps, the laughter, the shared silences, and the acts of care coalesced into a single truth: they were stronger together. And their love had become a source of courage, comfort, and unwavering hope. Walking home, side by side, Grace understood that holding hope was not just about looking forward to the future, but about nurturing it in each shared moment, together. They had discovered that life could be gentle, love could be steadfast, and hope could bloom beautifully when two hearts chose to hold it together.